India's top military brass is now taking a look at the final blueprint of the proposed theatre commands for China, Pakistan and the Indian Ocean region with an aim to ensure, I beg your pardon, a well-integrated war-fighting machinery at the JCC that commenced in Lucknow. The blueprint is reportedly more or less ready and presentations have started and shown to defense ministers and other top dignitaries. As per the official word, the government will now take the final call on it as we now bolster our military capabilities, and the time is now ripe to fuse the Army, Navy and the Air Force. What is indeed going to be the next move? We'll talk about this, I beg your pardon, with our guests. Joining us on the show is Group Captain Dr. M.J. Augustine Vinod, former fighter pilot, MiG-21, joins us on the show. Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Commander-in-Chief of the Operationally Active West Naval Command and defense expert, also joins us on the show. Major General A.K. Sivaj, former head of the Territorial Army and geostrategic defense expert, also with us on the program. Last but not the least, Major General Dhruv Katoch, defense expert, also joins us on the show on this very important program. General Sivaj, I'll begin with you, sir. Well, sir, the theatre commands have, been figuratively and theoretically been talked about for almost 3 decades now. The seeds were sown somewhere in the early 2000s by the Vajpayee government. It only started to fructify after 2014 when the Prime Minister, started to in fact turn this into a reality. And of course, the first CDS, who was in charge of putting all of this together, unfortunately passed away in that terrible chopper crash. But here we are again, trying to forge and trying to in fact foment India's theatre commands to tackle our adversaries on both sides. One is Pakistan and one is China, of course. And even if you look at the Indian Ocean or the Malacca Straits, India definitely, and the Andaman and Nicobar, you definitely need a cohesive unit of our defense forces to fight. But the fact of the matter is, what's going to be next in this fight? What's going to be next in this planning? And the turnaround, General Sivaj, has been very, very slow. It's been a slow burn. Is that also something which has created problems for you and will create problems operationally?
We have to understand that as far as a future war is concerned, it has to be fought collectively by Indian Army, Indian Air Force and Indian Navy. Now, as on today, so far, but in case if you see in the world over, the theaterization has taken place in those countries which have now realized that there has to be a total coordination and cooperation between Air Force, Army and Navy. However, the process is slow for the reason is simple that these three have different ethos, they have a different set of planning, training and operation. How they have come together during war, but that jointness was more on paper than on ground. So for jointness to come on ground, it takes time. Slow and steady win the race. In case if you hurry up and hasten up this process, it will have a pitfalls. You cannot copy a theaterization from other countries wholly. It has to be done in a manner which suits your nation. Now, as far as India is concerned, what we have seen is that there is a requirement of theaterization because the point is that you have two big enemies, one is China, one is Pakistan. So against China, there has to be only one theatre command, that is Northern Theatre Command, which will be located at Lucknow. And as far as the Pakistan is concerned, the Western Theatre Command will be located at Jaipur. So they will be the one which will be totally looking after these two enemies. And in case if it is, let's say, Northern Theatre Command, then all the resources of Army, Air Force, Navy, and this Theatre Command will be headed by the Army General and as well as the Western Theatre Command. And the Maritime Command will be located in the southern portion of the country, which will be looking after the Indian Ocean region also. So the point what we are now trying to do is that after having learnt lesson from other countries like US, UK, Australia, and very close to our as a neighbor China in 2011, they have established a theatre commands, and the theatre commands are doing extremely well. So we have learnt a lesson from there, and now we are Indianized those theatre commands. We have not blindly followed them, and that's why it has taken a lot of time. If you see, as far as China is concerned, they have implemented theaterization of their complete command in 2011, and their Western Theatre Command is looking after the complete border from of ours from Arunachal Pradesh to Ladakh. Whereas our four command, which are army commands, are looking. If you see, it is a Western Command, Northern Command, Central Command, and Eastern Command, and three are basically Air Force Command. One located at Western Command located in Delhi, then the Central Command located in Allahabad, and Eastern Command located in Shillong. So you can imagine the 7 commands versus of a single command, where there will be unison, the leader will be one, he will be overseeing the complete theatre and taking a decision after getting all the inputs, and all the elements will be under him. And therefore, so there is a requirement of jointmanship, and that's why the theaterization has taken place. Now, one is that there is a requirement in operation that you need to be having a sort of same thought process. Your training has to be same in case your operation has to fight together, and your logistics have to be also have the same type of quality of the weapon system as well as your logistic build-up, and there has to be redundancy in this so that you do not spend too much money on duplicacy. So therefore these things were very important in India. It took time because whenever you do something new, it is better to go slowly and steadily rather taking a hasty decision and then realizing it that you made a possibly a mistake, because war is a very serious affair. In case you have to understand the future contours of this warfare, it has to be done in such a systematic manner that you achieve the target without losing any main objective. I suppose that's why it took us some time. Now the blueprint is ready. In Joint Commander Conference, it has been already being spelled out, and all the 3 services will be on the same page, whether it is Indian Army, Air Force and Navy, and then it will be implemented possibly in another about year and a half to 2 years, slowly but steadily. And once you learn some lesson out of this midway, you will carry out a mid-course correction so that we reach to the best solution possible from the Indian point of view. Vineet.
All right, let me also rope in Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha into this conversation. Admiral Sinha, first of all, respond to what General Sivaj also said, that this has obviously been done in countries since a very, very long time. Though we are late to the party, we definitely see virtue in the fact that this has been realized later, but it is a necessity, especially for a country like India, which is poised at a location which is extremely volatile. All right, there seems to be a problem with Admiral Sinha's connection. Let me in fact take the same question to General Dhruv Katoch as well. General Katoch, are you there with us, sir?
Yes.
Sir, our location and our friendliness, for the lack of a better word, with our neighbors, how does that in fact put us in a state of volatility, and therefore the mandate for having these theatre commands sooner than we started planning for them?
Thank you, Vineet. Vineet, at some point of time, the theaterization will take place. It's a question of time, and that time actually, General Sivaj is talking about a year or 2 years. I'm looking at one or two decades. It won't happen before that. It's a very long, drawn-out process. It may start within 2 years, but the end product is going to be at least 2 decades down the line. It is a long process. It is required. But then there is a very old saying, the only thing harder, to get into the only thing harder than getting a new idea into a military mind is to get the old idea out. That is perhaps it's true for the military. I think it is true for everybody. There is always a resistance to change. But having said that, there are certain challenges as far as India is concerned in this entire theaterization business. You see, it has to go firstly, you got to have integration, then you got to have jointness, and after that, then you get on to theaterization. And I think we will get to theaterization a little bit later once we have the requisite resources to actually equip those theaters the way they should be equipped. That is the fundamental problem which is existing now. We've still got a long way to go in the integration process and in the jointness process. In the jointness, it is required as far as the planning is concerned to build synergy, to build joint warfare fighting capability, and so that all the the resources of each individual service they are enmeshed into one. So that there is absolutely no doubt. I think even amongst the services, there's no doubt. The planning process, we've got to get that planning process right. But even in the exercises which we conduct today, I don't think that planning process is being carried out the way it should. And that is simply a mental exercise. We are still not doing it, but we need to do it. Then, of course, training together and then operating together, that still seems to be a bit of a distance apart. Then getting on to integration, there are many things which we can integrate immediately without even getting involved in the theaterization. Get your logistics in order, get your the certain administrative details. One of them has already come in, the Command, Control and Disciplinary Act, where if there's a combined forces commander, now he can actually take administrative and disciplinary action against people from any arm or service. Now that, of course, is a step in the right direction. Then in R&D, logistics, procurement, all that has to come in. And that is, I think, where we should actually now lay a lot of pressure on. And at the same time, continue with the theaterization effort. I have a feeling that once India builds up its capabilities and we have the requisite resources, that is the time to really get into the theaterization mode. But we have to start building it now. That is the whole point. You see, while the process may take a very long time, the building blocks, they are in place. It will take a very long time to put these building blocks in place. It has taken the US about 20 years. So I don't think we can do it any faster than that. It is going to take a long time, but it is required. As you had mentioned right in the beginning, our geopolitical environment is such, we have to do it. We have got problems in our land borders. We've got to defend the air and the space. So that aerospace command at some point of time has come up. And then we've got to protect our waterways. So we've got the naval command will have to come up as part of the theater. We have got two commands functioning, inter-service command. We've got the Andaman and Nicobar command, and we've got the strategic forces command. But these are very small in nature. They are manageable. Getting on to the whole armed forces, I think, is going to take a bit of time. But in my view, it is required. We should start the process, but the end product, I have a feeling, will take about a decade or perhaps 2 decades to come about. Vineet.
Great points there, sir. Let me, in fact, also rope in Group Captain Dr. M.J. Augustine Vinod into this. Group Captain Augustine, what do you make of this necessity, and what do you think that India's pace in catching up ought to be now?
Great question, Vineet. In fact, I had the opportunity of being something called the CATSPOC, the Center for Air Tasking and Strike Planning for Aerial Warfare in the Eastern Sector. And that is the time, talking about 2011. And just fresh out of the cockpit into, making decisions for entire command is the time I realized that we have to, it cannot be a military decision. We have to follow what Chinese are doing. And that is the only way we can bring in 2 things: A, synergy, and B, bang for the buck. There was a particular bridge in question. All 3 services were defending that bridge with the weapons that they had, and all 3 services did not know they were defending that bridge till we got together in Kolkata. I mean, that was the situation at that time. I'm talking about 2011, and a lot of water has flown on the bridge since then. But let me tell you what Chinese are doing. The best part about the way Chinese are handling this is everything is under the army. So the Air Force, Chinese Air Force is PLA-AF. It is People's Liberation's Army Air Force. Similarly, the Navy, it is PLA-AN, which is Plan, It is the Navy is part of the centralized defense establishment. You may change the name to Defense Forces instead, if you don't want to use the word army, because army conveys a different meaning. You can call it a defense force and call it an integrated defense force, and all of us, I wrote a paper on it, I'm not saying off the cuff. All of us wear the same uniform, call ourselves the same way, addressing ourselves in the same rank, and that is the only way we will be able to. And a country like us, who are embarking on to be number 3 in economy, will be able to progress, because we need to get दो और दो पांच होना है, दो और दो तीन नहीं हो सकते हम. So that can only be possible if we come together as one. This theatre command and all this, it, in my opinion, is a very big short gap arrangement, and in which we are trying to find out how many 4-star general will be there, how many 3-star general. I mean, I'm sure they are required, but our discussion is, more centered towards who will be heading this particular command, and why not me and why not you, and those kind of things. Today, if government puts his foot down and says all of us will become defense forces, wear the same uniform, call ourselves in a similar rank structure, and we will defend the country together, is the only way we will be able to get where we will get. I'll tell you another issue. Indian Air Force. Indian Air Force aeroplanes can take off from Jodhpur today, Rafale, Su-30, Mirage 2000, and can be applied anywhere in India. We have done exercises where aeroplanes used to get outbound from Jodhpur and Jaisalmer, do a strike in Chabua and that area. So an Air Force is a strategic asset. Similarly, we have many such strategic assets, under which theatre command, those strategic assets will come. For example, nuclear forces. For example, the special forces. Special forces can get airborne from anywhere, can be airdropped anywhere. General Subhash's son is in Paras. They are strategic forces. They can get airborne from anywhere and drop anywhere and do whatever action they have to, and they'll exfil and come back to their base. So how will you, if it is going to be in the Northern Command, can I apply it in Eastern Command or in the something that is developing in Sunda Lombok and hand it over to the Maritime Commander? So these are questions which we will not have answer. Integrated rocket force. These long-range missiles that we have today. I can have my S-400, which is deployed in Western Command or in Central Command, can fire in the adjacent command areas and give support in the adjacent command areas. How am I going to bring that under somebody? Sitting in some other command, addressing somewhere else, how am I going to address these issues? I'm sure people have thought about it, but to execute on the ground, like General said, 1.5 decades, should it take so much time? When we have a simpler solution of calling ourselves Indian Defense Forces rather than Indian Army, Indian Air Force, or Indian Navy. In fact, very similar allusions were made by the Shekatkar committee. If you pick out that report, 2016 report, it very clearly elucidates these issues. But he has been, that committee has been, politically correct, but they have conveyed these points. These are the things that we need to look at. At JCC, yes, go ahead and announce as first step towards integration as establishing theatre command, but the natural fallout once we establish theatre command will be how inefficient we have made ourselves, maybe probably little better efficient than what we are today, but we can be even more efficient is the time we will realize probably we need an integrated defense forces, or call ourselves just the defense forces, come under one umbrella and work together. That probably, I go with General when he says it'll take a decade or two, and that I think is going to be the mathematical and natural progression of where we will be a decade or decade and a half down the road. We need not waste so much time. We can be there today if we take that call as, dissolving all three or merging all three and go the Chinese way. You know how long the Chinese took to reorganize their theatre commands. Less than a year. And since that time, it happened when I was in the chair. looking after the entire East. Is the time suddenly I came to know that theatre command has been established, and they reorganized themselves very beautifully, and one theatre command looks out the entire Indian border, including the borders of Pakistan and the entire Central Asian regions, and so many people under them. They also have strategic force, they also have rocket force, they also have the airborne corps separate, and they have organized it wonderfully, because they are under one umbrella, which is PLA. Air Force is under PLA, Navy is under PLA. So that is my long and short of my take on the subject, Vineet.
All right, we've also run out of time. We'll take concluding thoughts from all our panelists, starting with General Siva. General Sivach, obviously the integration, according to Group Captain Augustine, is also going to be something that India needs to be quick and wary about.
You know, the point which is there, Vineet, if we will keep on thinking that it will take 20 years, 30 years, we will not take decision. The decision has to be taken of integration, and you make a theatre command and make a theatre commander, you'll find things start falling in their place. The process may take time, but then the command structure is established. The jointmanship is started. So that's why it has taken so much time. You know, the blueprint is now ready. But once the theatre command is made and announced, then the process will start, in the sense then the decision has to be of one theatre commander. Imagine today there are 17 of them, 7 from Indian Army, 7 from Indian Air Force, and 3 from the Indian Navy. And from there it will now become 4. The 2 will be the Western and Northern Theatre Command, then the Maritime, and one we are not talking about is the Air Defence Command, which will be supposed to be of the Air Force. The point is simple as that. If we want jointmanship, if we want coordination, cooperation, the road ahead is that you have to have a theatre command, and that is the solution. And that theatre command, once it is established, then it will start functioning, and whatever are the shortcomings and all must be resolved in a phased manner. See, the point which is coming as on today also, that are we making optimum utilization of our resources which are available, that all three services are thinking their own way. But once the war has to be fought, it has to be fought as a Indian Defence Forces, and therefore this theatre command become very important, and the decision has to be at the top, and that's why everyone is saying a political decision has to be there, because after all, whether it is Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy, we also look after our own Army, Air Force, Navy interest. So the point is very simple, that in case we know the threat which is developing on our northern border, western border, and especially in Indian Ocean region, the jointmanship, integration and theaterization is the only key solution. And we have already learned lesson from Strategic Force Command, which is functioning of all the 3 services, as well as Andaman Nicobar Command. But there may be a baby step, but you need to take a longer step now, so that it becomes reality in time to come, and we become a potent force in Indo-Pacific in time to come. Vinny.
All right. General Gatoch.
Vineet, just one point, Group Captain Augustine mentioned that the PLA, the Navy and the Air Force are under the PLA. That is correct. But I would just like to add, their army is also under the PLA. So their 3 wings are under the PLA. It's PLA Army, PLA Navy, and PLA Air Force. So basically, when we are talking about the the Indian Defence Forces, it is something like the PLA. They've used the word Army, but it's an umbrella force under which all the 3 come, including the Army. No, you see, it is what General Sivach has said. I've got no disagreement with that. It's going to happen. My point is that at some point, when the whole system is complete and working without friction, that is going to take time. You may get the order today, but the ultimate completion is going to take some time. The problem is really going to be, you see, the allocation of resources, as Group Captain Augustine very correctly said. Now, if you want to resolve something like that, I think it could be done in a manner that the Strategic Forces Command could have, say, 50% of the air assets, theoretically, and 25% is given ad hoc to the Western Command, and say 25%, these are just numbers, to the Northern Command to look after China. And then when the battle progresses into the Strategic Command, where the air assets can be put wherever they have to be put. Ultimately, we'll have to work into different solutions. We cannot go into what the Americans are doing. They have got dedicated air forces. They have got hundreds of aircraft, which we just don't have. So do the Chinese. So when we don't have that capacity and capability to allocate those resources, ab initio cannot be done. I'll be very straight. It cannot be done simply because they are not there. So we could start thinking of putting a certain minimum amount with each of the theaters, and keeping the rest as a strategic reserve, and that could be sort of played around with. And obviously the command control elements and all that. This is going to take some time. A lot of ironing is required, but it is required. It will come in, and I've got no doubts about it. So the faster everybody gets down to it, I think the better it would be. Better it would be for everybody. And Group Captain Augustine is very right. Let us not start quibbling about who's going to command it, whether it's going to be the Army or the Air Force or the Navy. Let us simply change the designation. It'll be the IDF who will command it. And once you reach that level, you shed your uniform and you get onto a different uniform. So that all of us at that level, are operating with one uniform. So then it really doesn't matter what we are doing, and everybody's under one umbrella. That will make it work. But it is required. We have to get onto it. But along with the theaterization, which will take time, the things like jointness and integration, that can take place right now. It is already taking place, but that process must be expedited.
All right, sir.
And I think that's important.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.